All right, well, welcome. We're happy to have you all with us today, and we're excited to launch our new seminar series with USI Insurance Services today. These are new educational events, and our goal with these is to bring relevant and timely topics to our network. We will have time for potentially a few questions, so if you have any, please feel free to use the Q&A box versus the chat feature within Zoom. If we don't address certain questions that come up, just know that we will address those after the seminar is concluded. So first, I would like to introduce, we have with us today Wade Johnson, who is a Senior Vice President of Employee Benefits, as well as Amy Hollenkamp, who is a lead consultant in the Employee Benefits Department at USI Insurance Services. And they're going to be introducing their NICE Healthcare, which is a new offering for them. So Amy and Wade, take it away.
Thank you, Brittany. We're really excited to be here today and appreciate your time. At USI, really our goal is to bring innovative cost containment strategies to the table for our clients to help employers adapt and manage the rising costs of healthcare. So we're super excited to talk to you about NICE Healthcare today, because this is a solution that has really taken off amidst the pandemic. And it's changing the way employees are engaging with the healthcare system. And it's also helping employers reduce costs. So with that, my colleague Wade Johnson is going to provide an overview. And as Brittany said, if you have questions, we'll do our best to answer them, but we're trying to do this in a short window of time. So we're happy to have follow-up conversations following the presentation. With that, Wade.
Thanks, Amy. As Amy said, we're very excited. Thanks everybody for joining us. Anyone on this call that knows me knows I can talk for a long time. So I'm going to go as quickly as I possibly can through this. And to Amy's point, there are going to be hopefully questions and thoughts that you have. Please follow up after the fact. Our next slide, if you want to go ahead, Brittany, excuse me, is what is NICE Healthcare? And NICE Healthcare, what it truly is a primary care clinic that combines virtual care alongside the old school clinician house call concept to bring free medical care to your employees through kind of a membership type of fee arrangement. And so why NICE Healthcare? And you can go on to the next slide too, Brittany. Where did it come from? So basically, about 3 years ago or so, NICE Healthcare was started. And it really was focused on the fact that there are three kind of primary traditional flaws in the traditional primary care delivery model. The first one is inconvenience. These are things we all know, but just to hit on them quickly. One is that going to a primary care clinic or urgent care can be a time-consuming scenario. If you have a child that has strep throat, for example, and you kind of know that's what it is, you still need to bring the child in. You have to take time off of work. You have to pick the child up. You have to go sit in an urgent care. And I have a couple kids, and that's one of the things you try to avoid as much as possible. And certainly during COVID, we all learned that that's one of those things that we didn't even have a choice in that case. So it's inconvenient the way the primary care model works. It's also ineffective. And one of the things we have found, which is kind of sad, is that usually you check in, you get kind of your measurements taken, your tests run, that sort of thing. But actual time with the clinician is usually only around 10 minutes. And that's just a flaw in the system. It's certainly not a provider's fault. They just have so much on their plate, and they have to race through these things to get through their day. And that's the way the healthcare model has been built. And that can cause to, not getting questions answered, or maybe people run to urgent care because of that, which is increasing cost. All those sorts of things that just make it a little less effective than we all wish it was. And lastly, it can become unaffordable. In the advent of high deductible health plans, which many folks have these days because of increased premiums, these moments in grabbing traditional care can be a costly one for the employees that are there. While HSAs and high deductibles are wonderful tax shelters and they lower premiums, those nickel and dime costs are what can really hurt a person and hit their pocketbook, whether it's through prescription drug or urgent care copays, whatever it might be. It can become unaffordable, and people can sometimes avoid care because of that. And those are all kind of obstacles that NICE Healthcare really focused on in trying to create a solution. So what is that solution? So next slide, please. Thank you. Basically, by using technology and coupling it with this in-home primary care concept, we can address all those inefficiencies. We can try to make primary care affordable, effective, convenient, all the things that we kind of see as flaws. And again, as Amy alluded to, COVID has kind of opened our eyes to this sort of thing. Most of us had to get primary care done in a virtual environment during that time. And so the fact that NICE had already built this model 3 years prior, it really has, if anything good has come out of COVID, maybe this is one of them, that we're all more comfortable getting virtual care done or care done virtually. So you can go on to the next slide too, Brittany, please. This slide is very busy, but there's a lot on here. And what it really is what do I talk about? When I say primary care, there's so many things and so many areas that this could include or maybe doesn't include. And what NICE Healthcare, the solution itself, it covers many of the things that I think you would all associate with primary care. Wellness checks are really what I would start with that in that far left column. There's a lot of things on there, but for example, many of us, especially if you're on a high deductible plan like me, if you go in for your annual physical, if you ask any questions or get any lab work done that isn't in the traditional box, you're going to see a bill. You're going to see a $180 lab bill or whatever it might be. It's painful, unfortunately. It takes a lot of education for people to understand what you can and can't ask. And that's not really fair to them either. You go to acute illness, and I think this is where people often think of urgent care, where, my child has an ear infection or I might have pneumonia. I don't think it's bad, but do I want to wait? Should I wait? What's the cost of waiting even? And so do you get those things done? Chronic conditions, which is a really big piece near and dear to us at USI, we all know that high ticket claims can come from people that don't adhere to the necessary things to keep their chronic conditions in check. So A1C glucose test for diabetes is a great example. If cost or convenience is a hurdle that people have or roadblock for getting care, we want to take those roadblocks away to avoid large costs in the future. Physical therapy is something new that was added to NICE Healthcare's delivery model 1/1 of this year. Again, I have a child that unfortunately has to go to physical therapy on a regular basis, and it's an inconvenience to have to go on a weekly basis. Once you know the exercises, you just need somebody to make sure you're doing them the right way. Mental health isn't available quite yet. It's going to be available at the end of this 2021. Again, I bring this up because we've done a lot of analysis, and unfortunately, I think one of the real negatives of COVID is we're going to see an increase in mental health needs throughout our society because of what's going on. And so we're real excited that that's going to come as a part of this offering as well. And pharmacy, which is on the far right, what is really unique about this care model is through all of the services we're going to talk about, they can actually push pharmacy or prescription drug fills to the pharmacy and have them at no cost to your employees. Again, it's very exciting. We'll talk more about it in a second. But you can go to the next, please, Brittany. Thank you. So how does this all work? Very simple. It always starts with a video chat through your computer or through the app on your iPhone. And basically, you're going to do a diagnosis, just like you would assume a virtual visit is. But what is really unique is, like I alluded to, they can actually call a prescription in based on that. There's no cost for this. There's no cost for the prescriptions that are running through the machine, so to speak, which we'll talk again about towards the end of this. And it's just the referral piece is interesting because 3% of all the people that use NICE Healthcare actually get referred on to a specialist within the traditional health plan, so outside of NICE. So that 3% means 97% of the people that are using this service are getting resolution really by using this service model, which is a lot higher than I think most of us would envision. Physical therapy, it's a part of this, we talked about that, but peace of mind is interesting. Let's not let Google be our primary place to get medical advice. I think so many people, when they say Google the word rash and they see pictures and their head spins, we don't want that to be the model, but we also understand the convenience and cost of, do I need to go see a physician? Should I be doing that or not? And so you start with that concept. So this is an unlimited use type thing. There's no cost to the employee. So constantly people can be using this on a daily basis if they want to just get those routine questions answered, which I think is great. So from there, it goes on to step 2. And this is the really unique part of NICE Healthcare is that they actually will send a clinician out to your home. And that clinician can do lab work. They have a portable x-ray machine. Let's say your kid plays soccer, sprains their ankle. You're pretty sure it's a sprain. You ice it. You wake up the next day, it's still swollen. And you're like, should we run in and get an x-ray? Which has happened to me and probably everybody on this call at some point or another. And at the end of the day, NICE will actually bring the clinician to your home with a portable x-ray machine and say, you know what, you're good. It's just a sprain. Obviously, if it's worse than that, they're going to push you off to the doctor. They're not going to set it right there in your home. But to have that concept, I think it's really unique, and it's something that I think brings the kind of the personal touch of healthcare back to the machine and the system, and still uses technology to do so. So that part is great. I put a couple examples in here to show you. This one I think is really eye-opening. This is just strep throat as an example. Again, if you've ever had a child, you kind of know this is par for the course. You can see kind of left to right the levels of care, whether you use Nice Healthcare, a minute clinic, a traditional clinic, or urgent care. It says the cost of the visit, the test, the prescriptions. Again, in the Nice concept, the employee pays nothing. There is no cost to them to use this prescription or this kind of subscription type concept. And there's no travel time. The convenience of bringing it home is wonderful. And one thing Nice Healthcare figured out early, which I think is so cool, is that let's say I'm covered under my employer's plan who has Nice Healthcare attached to it, but my spouse does not. It covers my whole household. So I can use this for any of my family members. They can come in and, for example, with a strep test, if you have more than one child, if one of them has strep, they probably all have strep. You just don't know it yet. And so they'll actually test everyone in the home. It's not just for the person that is quote unquote kind of the patient in that example. So it's really a household concept that I think is very unique, and it's a great delivery model. The next example is another one with, again, diabetes, which is such a big disease management concept that we at USI focus on so much. Again, the last thing we want is someone to not manage their diabetes because of cost or convenience. So let's make these things readily available. They can actually get their tests done. Someone will come to their home and do it. The convenience factor, you've taken that out of that element away. And again, really powerful. You can move on to the next slide too, Brittany. At the end of the day, why would employees do this? I think it's somewhat self-explanatory, but the one part I think I want to hit on that I didn't. I earlier in this talk talked about how the normal clinician only spends around 10 minutes with the patient. The way Nice Healthcare is built is their clinicians are actually averaging 45 minutes or more when they talk, whether it's virtual or whether it's in home. And this really gets to that relationship building of, are you healthy? I'm here to look at your knees or some other reason that you need to talk through this. Let's talk through it, and you're not worried about how much is it going to cost me? How much time is it going to take? All of those things. These other pieces I already hit on, I think same-day visits, multi-person visit, prescription drugs, which is really unique. And then the in-home visit piece, which is something I've never seen anywhere else, and it's something Nice is really takes pride in. The next question becomes, why would employers do this? And this is where, again, we get excited because we work in the employee benefit space. That's what Amy and I do on a daily basis. And there really are a couple things, other than some of them are obvious, but some not as obvious, I think. With the advent of high deductible health plans, again, I alluded to this earlier, the last thing you want to do is have people constantly, take away or take money out of their piggy bank so that when a catastrophic thing happens, they don't have any piggy bank or, kind of money stocked away for that. So let's take away those nickel and dime type things and have people get that care done without affecting their high deductible or their out-of-pocket maximum. All of these claims are not run through the health plan, which goes really to kind of the second bullet in the middle point, which is it drives utilization down, but it gets to the point, because these claims are not run through Blue Cross or Medica or Health Partners or Preferred One or United Health or Aetna, Allina, they're not run through this machine. That means it doesn't impact your renewal. It means those claims are not getting accrued by your health insurance company. It's no different than car insurance. If you don't make a claim, your premiums aren't going to go up. We can't avoid really large catastrophic claims, but we can certainly avoid some of these nickel and dime claims. And how do we get ahead of those things? This is a great way to do it. So there is a cost associated with Nice Healthcare. Every client that I have thus far put with Nice Healthcare, we have been able to negotiate a discount in your fully insured premiums to offset at least, and then some, the actual cost of Nice Healthcare. So if you were able to offer this benefit and not increase any cost to you, have employees get this care conveniently and at no cost to them, the hope is that this is kind of a no-brainer, no-lose situation for everyone. And that talks really about the very last thing. If you're self-funded, I guess I'll throw this in here. If you're self-funded, we would do an analysis to show you the value of this. But the last piece is, I think we oftentimes forget health insurance is supposed to be an employee benefit. It's very costly. It constantly is changing and flowing, usually for the negative. So to be able to offer to your employees a new benefit that actually saves them money, that is something that is convenient. And again, I think right or wrong, one of the benefits of COVID is now is a good time to be able to talk to this and say, hey, you know what, you can get your care virtually. And people don't freak out about that. They don't say, I can't do that. I don't know how to do it, because they had to do that for at least 3 or 4 months of the year last year, and maybe continually, depending on what they're getting done. So the convenience factor in that piece, it becomes an employee benefit, which is what it's supposed to be at its root. So I have 3 more slides. I'll go quickly, and I know I'm running out of time. the service area, this again is really cool because it started off again 3 years ago, just as a Minneapolis, St. Paul concept, really right in the metro area. But because of the rapid growth and the need and want and desire for this product, it has grown to cover the majority of Minnesota. And you can see in this map, the gray area just represents the in-home care piece. You can get the virtual care piece all throughout the state, and they can still call in prescriptions, all those things. But to the unique piece of the in-home care, it's growing every day, and that's really exciting for us. Part of the reason that NICE has decided to partner with USI is we're a national brokerage, which goes to the next slide, which shows you kind of where this care is today. It started out in Minneapolis and St. Paul. In 3 years, it's become in these purple states where you can get full service. You can get in-home care as well as the virtual care. The yellow or gold colors right now are just virtual, but this is growing every day. And that way, if you have employees in other locations, we can talk about it. And that's something you can talk to Amy and I about, because there are ways to kind of make this all work. But that's important because we work with a lot of clients that have multi-state employees. And that goes to the last slide, and then I promise I'm done, is the demographic. Who wants this? Who's buying this? Who's engaging in this? What I love about this slide is it tells us everyone. It's not focused in one industry. It's not focused in one employee size. It's not even focused in fully insured or self-funded. I think the high deductible health plan piece kind of makes sense. It's a great way to defer cost in that scenario. But at the end of the day, I think what Amy and I get so excited about is this is something that really every employer is interested in. Whether or not you do it or not, it has to financially make sense. But at the end of the day, the most important piece is that it's an employee benefit. And if we can help you find something that can make your employees enjoy their healthcare experience a little bit more, that's, again, as a reminder, that's why we do this. And so that's it. Thank you so much. I'm going to turn it over to Brittany now. But if you have any additional questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to Amy or myself, and call us, email us, whatever makes the most sense. But thanks again for your time.
All right. Wow. Thank you, Wade. It's very relevant given everything we've seen happen with changing medical visits with COVID and how we've had to adapt. So thank you for sharing that with us. I'm Brittany Hancock from Boulay, and I'm an audit manager within our firm. And at Boulay, we work with individuals, closely held businesses, and other public companies to help assure their financial success. And today we're really excited to have with us Mike Crabtree, who's a partner in our tax department. And he's going to touch a little bit on the CARES Payroll Protection Program, as well as the Employer Retention Credit. So Mike, go ahead and take it away.
All right, thanks, Brittany, and thanks, Wade and Amy. It's really interesting stuff. Another form of adaptation that businesses have to deal with is changing tax law. And there's been a lot of that in the last year. A lot of that change came through the CARES Act, which was enacted at the end of March in response to the economic turmoil that we were experiencing from the beginning of the pandemic. And that CARES Act had a lot of stuff in it. I mean, it was 800 pages of all sorts of changes, but two of the biggest ones, and the ones I want to talk about today, are the Paycheck Protection Program, the PPP that everyone's heard about, and the Employer Retention Credit. The PPP was not technically a tax thing, but it triggered a lot of tax issues. We'll kind of get into that too. And both of these provisions were changed pretty dramatically by the big stimulus act that came out at the end of December. So if you recall, the Paycheck Protection Program was meant to be just that, right? We're going to loan money out to businesses that need it, and so they can have the liquidity to keep their employees on the payroll and keep them working. And the way it worked, it was a forgivable loan. So you could borrow up to 2.5 months worth of your average payroll. And as long as you spent that money on eligible expenses after the covered period, your loan would be forgiven. So it, in a sense, acted as a government grant. And in the CARES Act, it says that forgiveness is not to be taxable income. So it was supposed to be a tax-free grant. And then shortly after the CARES Act came around, the IRS came out and said, well, we understand that is tax-free income. And because it's tax-exempt income, there are other provisions of the tax code that say that you can't deduct the expenses that you paid with those tax-free dollars. And so the effect of that was to make the forgiveness taxable. And And so that was the big turmoil that everybody was wondering what's going to happen. That issue got resolved in the big stimulus act that came out at the end of December, where Congress said, no, we meant this to be tax-exempt income, tax-free income, no negative tax implications from it. So on the federal side, at least, the problem is solved. The PPP forgiveness is not taxable income. It doesn't affect our deductions. The issue that we have here in Minnesota is that Minnesota has not yet changed it has not yet addressed the issue. So that PPP forgiveness, that tax-free money that you got from the PPP program is currently taxable in Minnesota. There are bills over in St. Paul, and they're debating this right now as to what Minnesota is going to do, and we don't know yet. And I don't have a strong feeling one way or the other, because it's a significant financial move if they were to conform with the federal treatment. But at the same time, the whole intention of this was to get money out to employers so that they could keep their employees on the payroll. So the first, what we call round one of the PPP, started at the beginning of April last year and went up to 24 weeks. Now, the big stimulus act that came out at the end of December re-upped this for what we call round two, which is the second round of PPP. And in this second round, there are some significant changes from the first round. And under the first round, the maximum loan a company could get was $10 million. And you could only get one of these loans if you had 500 employees or less. In round two, they've reeled that in a little bit. So the maximum loan is $2 million. And you can only get one of these if you have 300 employees or less, as opposed to 500. And in addition, a really big difference is that you actually had to show that you were negatively impacted in 2020 as a result. Well, it doesn't have to actually be as a result of COVID, but that's kind of the presumption. You have to be able to show that at least in one quarter of 2020, your gross receipts were at least 25% less than they were in that same corresponding quarter in 2019. That's the revenue reduction threshold that you have to meet in order to qualify to get a round two loan. And another wrinkle on round two that I didn't put on my slide here is that there are certain limited types of businesses that kind of all fall in the hospitality category. So think hotels, restaurants, bars. They are actually eligible for a bigger loan in round two than they were in round one. Remember, round one was 2.5 months worth of average 19 payroll. For these particular businesses in that hospitality category, they can borrow 3.5 months worth of payroll. So that is another big difference for people who fall in that category. All right, next slide, Brittany, please. Shift gears quickly to the employee retention credit, which is another provision of the CARES Act. And this didn't get a lot of press necessarily right out of the chute, because there is a rule in the CARES Act itself that says if you got a PPP loan, you couldn't get the employee retention credit. You were just flat out forbidden. That rule got changed in the big stimulus bill at the end of December. So all of a sudden, everybody's looking backwards and saying, "Oh, there's this employee retention credit out there. Can I access that as well?" And in some cases, you can. That when the stimulus bill changed that rule, they also made some really big changes in the credit itself in between 2020 and 2021. And we'll get to that in a second. But under the 2020 rules, it was a 50% credit on up to $10,000 of wages per employee. So there was a maximum credit of $5,000 per employee for 2020 if you qualified. And qualifying in 2020 meant that either the government shut you down for a period of time, either partially or fully, or you had a hit to your revenue. And that threshold in 2020 is 50% a revenue hit from in one quarter versus the corresponding quarter in 2019. It's a pretty big hurdle to jump. And also, and another rule in 2020 is that if you were a large employer, in other words, if you weren't a small employer, you only got the credit for wages that you paid to employees for not providing any services. In other words, if you just sent people home and paid them anyway, and they couldn't provide any service, they couldn't telecommute or anything like that. They actually literally could not work, but you paid them anyway. Then you could access this credit if you were a large employer. So we saw some situations where that happened, but it was not that common. Okay, Brittany, we'll jump to the next slide, please. And so huge changes here. In 2021, the credit was extended through the first 2 quarters, so through June 30th. The credit changed, now it's a 70% credit on up to $10,000 of qualifying wages, and that is per quarter. So the max then becomes $7,000 per employee per quarter. So potentially, if you qualified for the first quarter of 2021 and the second quarter of 2021, you could get up to $14,000 per employee. And this credit is actually, it's operated through the payroll tax withholding system. So it's kind of done on your quarterly payroll filings, and that's where you kind of reconcile it and access the dollars, as opposed to with your annual tax returns or anything. Another huge difference here is they raised that small employer limit from 100 employees to 500 employees. So now, if you qualify during this period, you can get it for all the wages you paid if you were small, if you have fewer than 500 employees. So that's going to rope in a lot more businesses than the old rule. Again, we still have that same issue of, if you're being shut down by the government, fully or partially, or a revenue reduction, but the revenue reduction threshold is significantly different in 2021. You only have to be able to show a 20% reduction in gross revenue from, for example, for the first quarter of 2021 versus the first quarter of 2019. If your gross receipts dropped by 20% or more, then you qualify for the whole first quarter. And then the same thing in the second quarter. So, and there's also another wrinkle to that, which is there's a rule that allows you to elect to look back a quarter as well. So you could theoretically qualify for the first quarter of 2021 if you can show that your fourth quarter of 2020 was at least 20% less than your fourth quarter of 2019. That's a lot of numbers there for you, but I just want everybody to know that the huge issue with this, though, is still when the stimulus bill opened the door to PPP borrowers, it still leaves the rule that says we can't use the same wages for both. So if we're using our wages to qualify for PPP loan forgiveness, then we can't use those same wages for the employee retention credit. And you can skip to the next slide, Brittany. And so that right now we're kind of in this limbo of waiting for the IRS to give us guidance on how we pick and choose those wages. So there's kind of, like I said, in limbo to see exactly how this is going to work. If you're not doing a second round PPP loan, then it's easier for you, and you can kind of just determine whether or not you can apply or qualify for this employee retention credit. But we'll wait and see, because it's a big question is to be able to use both. And we're right up on time, and we really want to respect everybody's time. So please reach out to us if you have questions on these tax things. Reach out to Wade and Amy on questions on the nice thing. Brittany, anything to wrap up?
Yeah, so thank you all for joining us today. Just as a reminder, we will have a recording of this available, which will include the slides, so you'll all have access to be able to review any of that material that we covered today, which would also include both our contact information as well as Amy and Wade's. And with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap up. But thank you everyone for joining us today, and we hope to see you soon in the future for more events.